Okay, we're rolling.
Sorry, taking a place.
I think second to snap stuff, I think we should take
Okay, one of us have to press the button, right?
Yeah.
We need an engineer for it? We have a lot of engineers in the room here.
Is it pressed already? This
right button. Pressed already? Okay, good morning everybody. This week's Parshat is Bishalach, and last week we did not meet because of the break. So I want to connect something that we in last week's Parsha, this week's Parsha, might be a little stretched, but I think it's a beautiful idea from the Kliyaka. Also, we're just coming off Minyan this morning, and now we're in the midst of Tefillin. Last week we just ended with the midst of Tefillin, and the Torah says, it should be a sign on your hand. And we all know Yodcha has to be on your weak hand, right? We say that the tefillin has to be put on the weak hand. And the question is why? Is that a good question? Why the weak hand, right? Why not the strong hand? You know, we were just doing Parshat Bishalach now. Why the weak hand? You know, generally when you do a mitzvah with the strong hand. For instance, when you made a bracha today, you made a bracha on the bagel. Which hand are you supposed to hold the bagel in? Hold in your right hand. If you're a lefty, I think there's discussion. You know, Ashkenaz, some will say you're right, you hold in the left hand. I think the Sephardim will always right. I think they would hold in the right hand. You know, check it up. I'm not a Sephardi, but I would think the Sephardim would always do in the right hand. But double check with your local Sephardi Orthodox rabbi. But the question is, when you do a mitzvah, you always do it with all the strength, right? You do it with all the strength. So the question is, why is it that the mitzvah of tefillin is on the weaker hand? Should be on the strong hand. I think it's a valid question, right? Agree it's a valid question? Cleopas is valid. I think it's a good question. So he says beautifully like this. A person has to know that he himself is weak. A person has to know that as much as we have a responsibility to do everything we can do. But we need the help of Hashem to be successful. We need Hashem, like it says, who gives you the strength? Who gives, you know, it says, who gives you to see and to walk? Who gives you all the strength to be able the wisdom and everything? To give you wisdom and understanding. Hashem gives you everything. So how do you recognize that? You know, life, a lot of times the problem is people forget and they think it's me. There are a lot of arrogant people out there. They think, I'm the man. I do everything. I'm the one who's everything. And therefore, a person, how does a person recognize that? When a person puts his tefillin on his left hand, symbolic of being weak. I'm putting it on my hands. My hands are what I'm going to be doing. We're action-packed people. We're going to be doing stuff with our hands. We're going to be building. We're going to be creating. We're going to be doing the computer with our hands. Whatever we're going to be doing with our hands. But we're going to recognize that we are weak. We need Hashem. That's what we have to recognize. We ourselves are weak. Without Hashem, we don't have it. And therefore, you know, it says, Shivisi Hashem l'negdi sameh. Hashem is supposed to be in front of, always supposed to have Hashem in front of you. And if you're facing Hashem's in front of you, so therefore Hashem's right, on your left, what is facing you directly on your left? Hashem's right. And that's the connection to this week's Parshat. Mincha Hashem nador. You like the connection? Mincha Hashem nador v'koach. Mincha Hashem tiyaseh. The Pasuk is about Mincha Hashem. It doesn't say the small of Hashem. No small of Hashem. Hashem is the Almighty. There's no small of Hashem. It's Mincha Hashem. It's His right that's going to go ahead and supplement, so to speak, and give the strength to our left, to our weakness. And that's the idea of why maybe the tefillin is on the left hand. I thought it was a beautiful idea. I couldn't just control myself and not share such a beautiful idea. When you put on your tefillin in the morning, you have to always constantly remember that. And you know, the melech is a special halacha for a melech, for a king, a special mitzvah. He has to have a sefer Torah with him wherever he goes. I mean, we have a mitzvah, everyone has to write a sefer Torah. He has the mitzvah to carry the sefer Torah with him, always wherever he goes. He needs an extra sefer Torah. Why? Because he might forget. He might forget, Levilti rum levavo me'achav. He might say, I'm the king. Or get to his head. You know, there are some people in power, some heads of state of certain places or certain countries that they let it get to their head when they think that they start thinking that, you know, I don't know if it's true. They say that Superman himself, they say there's a guy who was Superman who actually thought he could actually fly. I don't know if you know that. There's certain people that they let it get to his head and they think they have the power. And therefore the king needs extra strength, extra chizuk, that he shouldn't let it get to his head, and therefore he has to go have an extra Sefer Torah. I think that we would recommend all heads of state to do certain things that they should keep them in check, that they shouldn't let it get to their heads. And we all know what it says about Moshe, Rabbeinu Avish Moshe Anav Ma'od. Moshe was the man who didn't let it get to his head. With all his greatness, Lakam Kamoshe, what was it? He was the most humble. And that's a sign of a true leader. And it says in the Parsha, V'chamushim olu b'nei Yisrael, Pasuk Yitches, to connect what we're saying, it says, V'chamushim olu b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Yisrael. The Jewish people went out chamushim. Now there's different shatim. What does it mean they went out chamushim? So one shot of Rashi is they were armed. They were armed. They took weaponry with them. And the question is, what's the pshat? Rabbi Bachai explains that derech pshat that even though the Jewish people are not like the other nations of the world, we don't need our weaponry is not what makes it. It's not what makes us win the war against our enemies. But the way of the Torah is, and this is the Rabbeinu Bachai, you will find this idea of Rabbeinu Bachai throughout, is that the Torah commands us that we should act in a natural way, in a derech hateva, and then the miracle will happen. That's how Rabbeinu Bachai explains in his Akdama to Parshat Shlach. What was Moshe Rabbeinu thinking? Why should we send spies? Spies? Hashem said, I want to give you the land. You need spies? You're on Hashem's shoulder. What do you need spies for? The answer is, you're going to conquer land? You got to do whatever you can do. Physically, what can you do? You can send spies. That'll make it less of a miracle. You send spies. And with all the spies, it's only Hashem. You'll be successful because of Hashem. But that's how Hashem created the world with a teva, and you got to go ahead and work within that teva, and you got to do everything you can do with derech teva. But then, and then only then, you were still, at the end of the day, it's still Hashem. That's why I always say, the state of Israel. It's a miracle. We have a state of Israel, right? You go to the state, right? People just came back. It's unbelievable what's going on in Eretz Israel, right? It's a miracle, right? In 1948, what he had, 600,000 Jews surrounded by many millions and millions of enemies. And what happened? Here we are today. But we have to do natural, but in a natural course of way of things, we have to build up to have the best army, the best air force, the best navy, so on and so forth. We have to go b'derech hateva. We can't just have the miracle to open, say, God could do anything. Therefore, God will do the miracles for us. That's not the way. That's not how the Torah wants us to act. Hashem created the world within gave a certain teva, a certain nature, and that's the idea. Also, the idea of a chamushim olav b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. They went up from Eretz Mitzrayim armed because they understood that idea. Now, I saw from Rabbi Feinstein, one of my old notebooks, that he said an idea of a chamushim olav b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. What was the chamushim? If you look, the connection to the pasuk Yud Ches is v'chamushim olav b'nei Yisrael v'yikach Moshe es atzmos Yosef imo. That was how they were armed. It's also armed is not only in the weaponry. When a person goes ahead and when we do what we're supposed to be doing, he took the atzmos Yosef imo, because Yosef made him swear, and that merit of doing the mitzvah of taking the atzmos Yosef and following what Yosef commanded. That also is the chamushim olav b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. That also helped, made you prepared, chamushim, strengthened, armed. Sometimes we're armed physically, with physical weapons, with missiles and so on and so forth. But we also have to arm ourselves with mitzvahs and ma'asim tovim. And that's the chamushim olav b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. Which really, if you connect to the end of the parsha, when the parsha says, when we had the war with Amalek in this week's parsha, it says when Moshe lifted his hands, lifted his hands, the Jewish people were victorious. And when they put his hands down, they were unsuccessful. The Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, were the hands of Moshe? If his hands were up, the hands made, that's the trick. Your hands have a trick. You pick up your hands, they win the battle. You put your hands down, and you lose the battle. So the Gemara says, when the Jewish people were looking towards Hashem and they were davening properly and their hearts were in it, and they did the proper tshuva, mistak kapei maila, then they were victorious in battle. But when they did not do that, when their hearts weren't in it, and so on and so forth, they were not victorious in the battle. So therefore, that's what made them successful. What made them successful? Of course, they had the weaponry. They beat them with weapons. But they also need the other part of looking towards Shemayim, because that's our Hakol Kol Yaakov Yadayim De'esim. Our power is the call of the Beis Medrash, the call of the Kollel, the call of the learning, the Tefillah. That's the Kol Kol Yaakov. That's it. And I wanted to say, it says V'hoya Kasher Yorim Moshe Yodo. When Moshe will, it's a Lashon future. Doesn't say Kasher Ram Moshe Yodo. There's a big Baladiktuk over here. It's not over here. Kasher Yorim is a Lashon future. There's a very big chazal in this week's Parshat on the future. Oz Yoshir Moshe. So what does Rashi say? Ashar lo nema. Doesn't say that then he sang. Oz Yoshir. He will sing. What do you mean he will sing? He's singing now. What do you mean? A person gets up to sing and you say, then he will sing. He's singing. What do you mean then he will sing? So what does Chazal say? Remez etchias hamesim min Torah. Moshe's going to come back. Moshe's going to come back. Remez etchias hamesim min Torah. That's why Moshe will sing in the future. He'll have what to sing about. That's the Remez etchias hamesim. So I wanted to say like this. I wanted to take on that Chazal. I wanted to say this point. V'hoya kasher yorim Moshe. When Moshe will raise his hands in the future, not only the Moshe Rabbeinu of that time, every leader in the future, which represents what Moshe Rabbeinu was all about. When Yorim Moshe, when that leader will lift up his hands, the Gava Yisrael. Meaning, if we in the future, when that next leader, whoever our leader is today, will go ahead and we'll lift up our hands, and we'll have look towards Hashem, then we'll be very, very successful. That's the V'hoya Kasher Yorim Moshe in the future as well. This is the recipe for today. The recipe for today is, in order for us to be successful, our destiny is not dependent on the President Obama. It's not dependent on the Israeli elections that just came in, and who's the heads of that election. Of course, we got to do b'derech hateva. We got to do whatever we can, but our destiny is in our own hands, so to speak. Moshe Rabbeinu, when the leader will lift up the hand and say, "Come on, guys, let's wake up and let's smell the coffee and let's do what we need to do," and then we'll be successful. There's a beautiful shot in Perek Yudala Posach of Beis. When you look at it, it's beautiful. I wonder if it's from the Gra or not. I'm not sure. It says, "Vayavo Perek Yudala Posach of Beis." If you see it inside, it's even better. But if not, we'll do a little balpeh. It says, "Vayavo b'nei Yisrael b'soch hayom bayabosha." The Jewish people came b'soch hayom bayabosha, v'hamayim lehem choma, nimina, mismola. Now, if you notice, choma is spelled with a what? With a vav. Go a few psukim later. The pasuk says in Perek Chav Tes, without a vav. Good question. What's going on? What's going on with the vav? So what do Chazal say? The famous Chazal. Choma without a vav sounds like chema, anger, right? What's anger? Chema. Why should the Jewish people be deserving of being saved and the Egyptians being drowned? Discrimination. Halalu over there for the Zara, halalu over there for the Zara. They worship Avodah Zara, and they worship Avodah Zara. So they all worship Avodah Zara. So why is it that the Jewish people should be saved? So that's why it says without the vav. I mean, of course, it's supposed to be spelled with the vav. Choma. How do you spell a wall? With the vav. But to tell you the idea that he was angry, there was an anger, there was a kitrug, a prosecution, the prosecuting attorney of someone was coming with a prosecution against the Jewish people. That's why it says without the vav. What's the question? The question on that is, why is it over here? Why only the second pasuk that say choma without the vav? Why not in the first pasuk? So the answer that's given is because if you look, it's also another difference in the first pasuk and the second pasuk. The first pasuk says they came besoch hayom bayabasha. In the yam, then the yabasha. The second pasuk says they came bayabasha besoch hayam. One pasuk says they were in the sea into the dry land, and one pasuk says they were in the dry land in the sea, which is explained as follows. As we all know, the famous Chazal this week about Kriyas Yam Suf, Nachshon ben Aminadav. Where did he go? He went into the Yam by Yabasha. He went into the river, and then eventually it split into the dry land. However, the rest of the Jewish people did not go by Yam by Yabasha. They went by Yabasha. So it was already dry by the time they get in, because he cleared the path to everyone. So therefore the pshat is, when the first pasuk, when it says they went by, when the first pasuk talks about Hayom Bayabasha, which is the order of events, that Nachshon went into the sea, Bayabasha, he had a munah to go into the sea. Moshe Rabbeinu says to go, you gotta do what you have to do. So therefore there was no kitrug, there was no prosecution over there. There's no chayma. It's choma. It's a wall. It's a protection. What is a wall? A wall is protection. When you do the right thing, you'll have mayim lahem choma miminam mismolam. You'll have protection on the right and on the left. However, the future psukim later, when it talks about the rest of the Jewish people coming in, and they came in how? By Yabasha b'soch hayom. They came in, it was what? It was already a done deal. They didn't show any emunah. They went into a dry land b'soch hayom. Then v'hamayim lahem l'chem. Isn't that beautiful? I think it's a great picture. Hamayim, no?
Yes, nice.
Hamayim lahem, buy it?
Yeah.
Have you got a sale? Okay, v'hamayim lahem, it's not necessarily business here. Hamayim lahem chema miminam u'musmalam. So therefore the water was, there was a kitrig, there was a great anger. Now, another thing I saw from Rabbi Feinstein, a beautiful idea which I think we have to inculcate into our lives. In Perek, it says in the beginning of the Parshat, when Paro ran after the Jewish people, it says that Amo lokach imo. Right? The question is, what does it mean he took his Amo? Right? It says in Perek Yudal Pasuk Vav, he tied his chariot. And Rashi says, "Hu ba'atzmo," which is a chiddush. The king, he tied his chariot and he's going. He's getting busy with the chariot. And usually, the king, everything's ready to made. You just gotta go. You don't have to do anything, prepare anything. But and the pasuk says, "Amo lo kachimo." So what does Rashi say? How did he get the people to go with him? Moshchem midvarim. He spoke to them. He talked to them. Rashi says so on and so forth. He gave them. He persuaded them. And Rashi says. And Rabbi Feinstein says, you could also say, you could take the people by doing two things. You could sometimes talk the talk, but sometimes you could walk the walk. I don't know if you use that expression. Here, Paro walked the walk. What does it mean he walked the walk? He did something. It's not just, sometimes you could get somebody to do something by talking to them, persuading them. And sometimes your actions, you set the example, and it's just everyone follows. You don't have to say anything. But yes, sir, esrichbo. He tied his chariot. He got himself busy and involved, something unbelievably involved for this action. He didn't wait for other people to help him out. He showed his enthusiasm to go to the war. That's how he took the people. That's how we should know in our lives. If you want to go ahead, the best way you could teach others is by setting the example. That's how Moshe Feinstein explained. We said this morning in Davening. The same b'libeinu bina la'av askel, l'shmoa, l'mod, u'lamed. So he has luma to learn. Lamed, is everyone going to be a teacher? So I would have said, what do you mean? It's a mitzvah. If you look at the Sefer Chinuch, the mitzvah of Talmud Torah is a mitzvah to learn and to teach Torah. I think that's how his headline. But Moshe says, everyone is a teacher. Even if you're not actually going to a classroom, and you don't learn Becharusa with someone, which we recommend everyone should learn Becharusa with somebody. Let's make Chavrusas. Let's make a deal. Let's make Chavrusas. Let's go. We got to make Chavrusas. It's very important. People are Tamid and people learn together. Share the wealth. People should be learning with each other. It's be a lebedik in learning. Right? But he says, the same everyone is teaching. The way you walk, the way you talk, the way you act, the way you dress. Everyone. What do we have? A whole media industry. They put out a picture of something, an advertisement of something. And what do they believe? What's going to happen because they put out that advertisement? You're going to buy it. You're going to. What do you mean you're going to? No one spoke to you. Did the guy talk to you? The salesman came over to you? Did they call you on the phone? The answer is yes. It's talent-managed, just like he spoke to you. That's what we have to realize. That they understand that. The multi-billion-dollar advertising industry, we're not an FIT here, whatever. The multi-business advertising industry, they'll tell you they understand that the way you show something, that will go ahead. You project an image, that's going to influence the other guy, what he's going to wear, what he's going to buy. Therefore, we should be zocher that we all, Baruch Hashem, all you guys are great guys. You come to Minyan, you learn, and you're setting a great example. But I'm not going to say that's enough. I want you to also to talk the talk also. It's not just walk the walk. I want you to talk to guys. I wanted that if Paro could be ves amo lakachimo, how much more so for Mida Tova we could be amo lakachimo. We have to go ahead and we have to be active. A new semester's coming. A new semester's here. Active to our fellow Cooper Union students, NYU students. We got to go ahead. We have to be the es amo lakachimo. The amo that we have to take with ourselves is the amo, the real am, the amas, am Yisrael. That's the amo we have a responsibility. We have to ask ourselves, how are we going to be ves amo l'kachimo? How are we going to go ahead? What steps are we going to take to encourage our fellow Jews to grow together? To grow. It's not enough that you guys are putting on tefillin. How many people are not putting on tefillin today? How many people are not davening today with a minyan? Or next week or whatever it is? You have the ability, Lilmod, Lilamed, you have the ability, Baruch Hashem, to make that difference and to change the look of what college life looks like. And some of you are very active, which is beautiful, and continue being active. But you know what? We always want more. You always have to ask yourself, is there any more that you can do? Even the people that are very active, they always have to ask themselves, I'm not saying there's more that you could do. You have to ask yourself, is there more that you could do? Bez Hashem, that's chus. We'll be zochet to hopefully to the gula shlema, just like they had the gula over there. We'll have the gula. Thank you very much.
There's a lemonade for community.
Is there a cup? I can pass the cup.
Lemonade.
Oh, let's get out.
How do you stop this? The red button?
Yeah.